The Sunday roast at my parents' house was always quiet, but this was different. My sister Chloe stood up, her face twisted with a strange, jagged kind of joy. She didn't whisper. She announced it to the entire table, including my new boss and his wife, who were our neighbors. She called me a pathetic loser, a hollow person who deserves to die alone. Nobody moved. My father continued cutting his steak. My mother adjusted her napkin. The silence from the people who should have defended me was louder than her screaming. I just sat there, frozen, watching my life break. The silence didn't end when the dinner party did. It followed me into the office on Monday morning. My boss, Mr. Henderson, didn't look at me when I walked past his glass-walled corner suite. He was the kind of man who valued culture and stability above all else, and seeing my own sister unravel at a dinner table had apparently stained my professional standing. By noon, I was called in. He didn't fire me, not exactly. He just explained that the senior partnership I'd been working toward for 3 years was being handed to a colleague who had fewer distractions. He said it with a sympathetic tilt of his head, as if my sister's outburst was a reflection of my own character. He chose the easy path. It was more convenient to sideline me than to acknowledge that I was a victim of someone else's instability. I went home early that day, the air in my apartment feeling heavy and thin at the same time. I expected a call from my mother. I expected her to apologize for letting Chloe say those things, or at least to ask if I was okay. Instead, the phone rang at 4 p.m. and it was my father. He didn't mention the dinner. He didn't mention the pathetic loser comment or the way my boss had looked at me. He spoke about the family business. He told me that they had decided to restructure the inheritance early. Chloe had expenses, he said. She was going through a hard time, and they were diverting the funds originally set aside for my graduate school loan repayments to cover her mounting credit card debt. "You've always been the strong one," he told me, his voice flat and robotic. "You can handle a bit of a struggle. Chloe, she's fragile. She needs this more than you do." It wasn't an ask, it was a notification. They weren't just letting her insult me, they were paying her for it with my future. I realized then that my parents didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a pillar, something sturdy and inanimate that they could lean on until I cracked. They didn't care if the weight broke me, as long as it kept Chloe standing. The betrayal felt like a slow, cold leak in a basement. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was the realization that every person I looked up to, my mentor, my father, my mother, had collectively decided that my fairness didn't matter. My hard work, my years of being the good child, and my professional reputation were all expendable. I sat on my sofa as the sun went down, watching the shadows stretch across the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't call them back to argue. I just felt a strange, shimmering clarity. The people who were supposed to protect my heart were the ones currently dissecting it for parts. I was 32 years old, and for the first time I realized I was completely alone in a house full of people who claimed to love me. This wasn't a new feeling. It was just the final shape of a pattern that had started decades ago. Growing up, I was the girl who got the grades, kept her room clean, and never missed a curfew. Chloe was the one who broke windows, skipped school, and needed understanding. My parents spent my entire childhood looking past me to watch her. They weren't watching her with pride. They were watching her with fear, waiting for the next crisis. Because I was stable, I was invisible. I remember winning a regional scholarship in high school, and my mother forgot to pick me up from the ceremony because Chloe had gotten a speeding ticket and was distraught. I ended up walking home in the rain, clutching my trophy while they consoled the person who had broken the law. As we reached adulthood, the roles only solidified. I became the family's unofficial emergency fund and emotional dumping ground. When Chloe lost her third job in a year, my parents asked me to loan her money for rent, knowing full well that a loan to Chloe was actually a gift. When she went through a messy breakup with a guy she'd only known for 3 weeks, I was expected to sit on the phone for hours, listening to her scream about how unfair the world was. If I ever tried to mention my own stress, the pressure of my career, or the loneliness of my life, my mother would sigh. She would tell me that I was so lucky to be successful and that I shouldn't be greedy with my emotional needs when Chloe was drowning. I was the expendable one because I was the only one who could survive being spent. They treated my resilience like a bottomless well. They used my reliability to subsidize Chloe's chaos. If I succeeded, it was expected. If she failed, it was a tragedy that required a collective sacrifice. I had spent years buying into this narrative, thinking that if I just did enough, if I was just patient enough, they would eventually turn around and see me. I thought that by being the person who never caused trouble, I was earning a place of safety. But safety isn't something you can earn from people who are addicted to the drama of someone else's destruction. I was just the background character in the Chloe show, the one who paid for the set and cleaned up the glass after every scene. The breaking point didn't happen at a party or during a fight. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I found out through a casual bank notification that my parents had tried to access my secondary savings account. They still had my name linked to an old joint account from college that I'd never fully closed. They didn't ask. They just tried to transfer $12,000 to Chloe's personal lawyer. When the bank flagged it and I called my mother, she didn't even sound guilty. She sounded annoyed that the transfer had failed. She told me Chloe had accidentally damaged a rental property during a breakdown and was being sued. "It's your sister's life, Sarah," she said, using my name like a weapon. "Don't be so selfish over a number in a bank account." That was the moment the internal switch flipped. I didn't yell. I didn't even get angry. I just felt a cold, quiet click in my chest. I realized that as long as I was available to be used, they would never stop using me. They didn't value my hard work. They just valued what my hard work could buy for Chloe. I walked into the bank that afternoon and severed every single legal and financial tie I had with them. I changed my emergency contact info at work. I blocked their access to my medical records. For years, I had been begging for a seat at a table where I was actually on the menu. I decided right there in the sterile lobby of the bank that I was done asking for a sense of belonging that was conditioned on my own depletion. I stopped being the safety net. I went home, made a cup of tea, and watched the sunset in total, absolute silence. The text message arrived on a Tuesday night, vibrating against my nightstand like a warning. I didn't even have to unlock my phone to see it. It was from Chloe. "Hope you die alone, you pathetic loser." I stared at the words until the screen went dark. I didn't feel the heat of anger or the sting of tears. I just felt a heavy, final sort of boredom. It was the same script she'd been running for years, and I was finally tired of playing my part. I set the phone face down and closed my eyes, drifting into a sleep that felt deeper than any I'd had in months. 2 hours later, the house phone, the landline I kept only for emergencies, screamed into the silence of the room. My heart hammered against my ribs as I fumbled for the receiver. It was my father. His voice wasn't the calm, authoritative tone I grew up with. It was jagged, high-pitched, and frantic. "Sarah, thank God you picked up," he gasped. My mother was wailing in the background, a sound so raw it sounded like a physical wound. "It's Chloe. There was an accident. A high-speed collision. She's in the ICU at St. Jude's, the hospital. They're saying her insurance lapsed 3 months ago. They need a $35,000 deposit for the specialized surgery immediately, or she won't make the night. We don't have it, Sarah. You have to send it now. Send it now or she'll die and it'll be on your hands." I sat on the edge of my bed, the cold floor pressing against my feet. I thought about the text from 2 hours ago. I thought about the dinner where they watched me get humiliated and said nothing. I thought about my bank account, which I had emptied and moved into a private trust just days prior. "I don't have it," I said. My voice was so flat it surprised me. "Don't lie to me," my father screamed. "We know what you make. We know about your savings. This is your sister's life. How can you be so cold?" "The money is gone, Dad," I replied, which was technically true. It was gone from the reach of this family. And I'm going back to sleep. I hung up. I didn't just hang up. I unplugged the phone from the wall. I turned off my cell phone. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the most expensive silence of my life, costing exactly $35,000 and the remnants of my relationship with my parents. I went back to sleep, and for the first time in my adult life, I didn't dream about falling. In the weeks that followed, the unraveling they had always feared finally took place, but I wasn't there to witness the fire. I heard through the grapevine of distant cousins that Chloe survived, but the recovery was long and ruinous. Without my financial cushion, my parents were forced to do what they had spent a lifetime avoiding. They faced the consequences. They had to mortgage the family home, the one they promised would be my inheritance, just to cover the initial medical bills and the legal fees from the other driver involved in the crash. The social circle they prized so much, the neighbors, the church friends, the business associates, began to drift away. It turns out that when you can no longer afford to throw the best parties or hide your daughter's distractions, people stop calling. My father's business reputation took a hit when he started showing up to meetings looking haggard and desperate, asking for advances he couldn't repay. I didn't have to say a word to anyone. I didn't have to post a single tell-all status or send a vindictive email. The truth of their lives, stripped of my support, simply became visible to the world. I moved to a different state 4 months later. I didn't leave a forwarding address, and I changed my social media handles to something unrecognizable. Sometimes on a quiet Tuesday night, I'll see a notification from a blocked number trying to leave a voicemail. I never listen to them. I don't need to hear their apologies or their new demands. There's a quiet, steady peace in my life now. It isn't the loud, cinematic happy ending people expect. It's a grounded dignity. I am no longer the strong one or the invisible one. I am just a woman who owns her own time and her own heart. The family I once begged to love me is a ghost story I no longer tell. I am moving forward, and for the first time, I am walking in the sun. People often ask if I feel guilty. They want to hear that I lie awake wondering, what if? But the truth is, the only thing I regret is not choosing myself sooner. For years, I thought love was something I had to buy with my silence and my bank account. Now, I know better. Love isn't a debt you pay. It's a place where you should feel safe. As I sit here in my new home, miles away from the chaos, I finally realize that being the strong one was just a cage. I've stepped out of it now. I'm not looking back. I'm finally, beautifully free.